Today we're doing a complete filter and spark plug service on the Audi A1 1.4 TFSI. This is just the standard 4-cylinder TFSI and not the one with the active cylinder technology. The parts I'm using today, all the filters are Mann from GSF, and the spark plugs are NGK. These totalled around £90 at trade price with the oil on top. The oil capacity is 3.6 litres, so you're looking at about 4 litres of oil, around 20 to 30 quid depending on what brand you use. You'll also notice there are 4 filters. We do have a fuel filter on this car, and I have checked it is underneath the offside rear wheel, just in front of it. May as well start with the oil filter as it's on the top of the engine here. Fortunately, this one hasn't been over tightened on the previous service. Can actually manage to remove it by hand. There is, or would be, a filter tool, but I'm not sure what size it is. This car's been off overnight, so hopefully all the oil has drained down to the bottom of the engine and doesn't drip out anywhere. That's quite a clean one, and it looks like it has a channel in that makes sure that the oil drops down. So there are instructions on the side of the new filter. You need to apply some oil to the new seal, or seals. Got seals, all this is rubber. And then fit it until it touches. And it says tighten by 20 Newton meters plus 2 Newton meters. But here, you can just tighten it 3/4 of a turn to 1 turn, basically. So as soon as it's touching, you then tighten it a 3/4 turn to a full turn. I'm just going to add some oil to the seals. If you're concerned about the oil being able to drain out freely, which is something I do get mentioned on videos from time to time, you can leave the oil filter off and refit it after you've drained the oil. That's completely up to you. This engine's been off overnight, so all the oil should be in the sump. So we've got the filter so that it's touching the mating surface now, and we can tighten it another 3/4 to 1 turn, but they don't need to be overly tight. So as I'm in the business unit today, not my workshop, I don't have my axle stands, they're under another car. I've had to jack the car up as high as I can, and I've placed it on some spare wheels that I've got. The handbrake is well on, the car is in gear, and I have put blocks of wood under the rear wheels, so there's no chance of it rolling back. Do take care, however you are lifting the car up, you'll want to use axle stands or appropriate support. Don't rely on the jack. I've had to do this because we've got an under tray to remove. We've got T25 Torx screws to remove all around the under tray so that we can get to the sump plug. Under tray removed, and I've got the sump plug here at the back of the sump, and it's a 19mm sump plug. So I've got a drain tray, drain container underneath. So I'm just going to leave the oil to drain out as long as possible now. While I'm waiting for the oil to drain out as much as possible, I'll get on with the air filter. So air box is here, and we've got T20 Torx screws holding the lid on. It looks like the screws don't stay put, so be careful not to lose them. And looks like we've got enough flex in this pipe to not have to remove it. Got a cylindrical filter. Which just locks into place. If you've got any debris in the air box, be sure to vacuum it out. These are the locations of the screws. Refit all the screws and don't over tighten them. What happens on the cars as they get a bit older is these tend to rust out and they're not very easy to remove. And if you over tighten them, you'll crack the airbox case. So we're down to just a drip. I'm ready to refit the sump plug. Now, I always forget these VW sump plugs, they have the washer attached to them, so you can't replace the washer. All you can do is replace the whole plug. So I haven't ordered one. I have reused them quite a few times and not had any issues. The tightening torque, if you want to use a torque wrench, is 30 Newton meters. Obviously, once you've got the car running, check that the sump plug isn't leaking at all if you are reusing an old one, but it's unlikely. So I've dropped the car back down onto the ground so that it's level for taking a dipstick reading. I'm going to top the engine up with about 3.2 litres of oil, if we can measure it. Now it looks like we've got one of those awkward filler holes which can't take a fast flow of oil and also isn't deep enough to leave a funnel in position. But we're very slowly going to add about 3.2 litres. Then we'll run the car for about 5 minutes, switch it off for 15 minutes and check the level on the dipstick. Getting oil everywhere. I managed to get about 3.5 litres in very slowly. I'm going to put the filler cap back on and run the engine for a few minutes. Once the engine has been switched off for 10 to 15 minutes, we can pull out the dipstick, wipe it off and reinsert it for a reading. So, quite surprised to see we haven't got a level that's in this hatched area, despite adding about 3.5 litres. So I'm going to add another 0.1, 0.2 litres and see where we stand. I've topped it up and waited a good 5 minutes, and this is what we've got now. So that's an acceptable level for a relatively cold engine that's not being run for 25 minutes. I would say maybe overnight it might go creep closer to the maximum level. So I've got the oil filter and the air filter replaced. I'm going to move on to the fuel filter, so that's the last thing that I need to do underneath the car. So this is where the fuel filter is located. I would probably do this without jacking the car up if it wasn't for trying to record it and getting a better view. So it looks like we've got the filter sat in this bracket here, and that's a Torx, probably T25 or T30. So actually what I thought was a Torx screw is a crosshead screw. So I'm using a big PH2 screwdriver. Doesn't look like the clamp actually comes down fully out of the way. Odd. Seems a bit odd. Anyway, if you can see on these clips, I'll try to show that one after. It's got these fuel hoses, and what you'll tend to find is they will get a little bit messed up with mud. So what I find tends to clear them is to push them on and then pull them back, and just keep pulling them backwards and forwards until the clip that you need to press clears. So you've got the two on one side and one on the other. Now you will drop a little bit of fuel when you pull off these hoses. Hoping that you can sort of see what I'm doing. So I'm pressing the clips in and pulling the pipes off. So you're not going to get the direction wrong on this. You know how it was removed with the two pipes at the rear of the car. Two pipes at the rear of the car and the single pipe at the front. New filter, same brand, same part number, and just refit as removed. So a new filter with these caps on the ends, remove just before fitting. You may want to stick some clean grease on the fixings. We'll just ensure that the pipes have a good seal and they go on easily. So you don't need to press the clips in when refitting. They'll push over and give them a pull the other way just to make sure that they are locked in position. and then reinsert the securing screw. Check the connections. Cycle the ignition a couple of times. You'll hear the fuel pump going. And you'll hear the air fizzing out of the new filter. You'll also be able to see if there are any leaks straight away. Start and run the car. Check the fuel filter isn't leaking. And the car may cut out if there is air in the system, but if you cycle the ignition a few more times it will force the air through and the car should be fine after that. Ready to get on with the spark plugs. We've got 4 T30 Torx screws in the engine cover. So we've got 2 in the holes at the back and 2 that you can see at the front. Now, I've not done one of these before, but we've got the coils here going down to the spark plugs. We've got this rocker breather that's a little bit in the way, but it doesn't look like it's simple to remove just for doing the spark plugs. So what I'm going to try and do is lift up the coils without doing any damage, while still with the connectors on them, because the connectors are wedged in to this plastic area. The coils were so difficult to remove on this car that I recorded a separate video because there's 35 minutes of footage. It took me about 3 hours to get the coils out, unfortunately. So what I'll do is I'll speed through the coil removal and keep this as a normal service video, but there is a separate video for the coils removal. So now we've got the coil loose, the connector to remove it, the clip is underneath. It's a normal VW connector and we just need to pull it. It's a good habit to keep the coils in order. If I'm just changing the spark plugs, I don't normally bother writing a number on, but I'd usually just put them at the back of the engine in order. the other side of this end of the pipe, got a plastic clip on both sides. I find it's easier to remove this one first and then the other one. So you have quite a bit of wiggle in the pipe itself. So if you undo this clip on the right hand side while pushing the pipe left, you see it's above and disengaged now. Then without pushing the right hand side down, undo the clip on the left hand side and lift the pipe up. So this is out of position now. So watch out for the pipes that are attached to it, just clipped in, including the plastic pipe that we'll be removing. So you may have noticed there was a gap here when we removed the plastic clip that went over here, and this allows you to push the charge pipe this way, which gives you a bit more room to disconnect it at the other end. And now this is completely detached. I've got all this extra room here. Now I'm quite glad that I did the job this way, because I found that this O-ring here was snapped, and that's why we've got this oily residue all over the engine and underneath this pipe. And it's strange because actually it's got quite a clean cut there. Looks like it might have been sliced, but that's a good find. It does fix another problem while we're doing another job. This rubber hose can just be tucked back out of the way, if it'll stay somewhere. This pipe here, squeeze on the sides of the connector and pull it out of the way. Don't put too much pressure on this. This is a hard plastic pipe, so we want to be careful not to crack that. I'm going to undo this connector which clips over the wiring harness. This is just in case we need to lift it up slightly with this wiring here, but we've already got this extra space which should stop any damage occurring to the wiring harness. So now we've got all this extra room, let's see if we can manage to get a cable tie round coil 4. So I'm just bending the end to try and make it go where we want it to, and it's quite a small gap at the back on this one, so I'm not sure. I'd have used a small cable tie, but as we've seen, they're not strong enough. I've just about got it in the right place. It doesn't appear to be coming back up. It's ready, it's in the right place, but oh, there we go. Look at that. So I've got that joined up. As we've seen from the other coils, doesn't necessarily guarantee that it's going to be easy to get out now. Ah, ow. Yeah, so you can probably see how if they're that stiff and one comes out like that, you're going to damage whatever's over here. So we did the right thing, removing the charge pipe, undoing this clamp. I get a better view of the connector that goes underneath. Normal VW clip. So that's coil number 4. So finally we're on to cylinder 1, and I think I found a way to get the cable tie in position. So I'm sticking a Bojo tool in there just to give us a bit of an extra gap. I've put plenty of a bend in the cable tie, and hopefully there we go. Just hoping this won't be the hardest one to remove. Finally managed to get a screwdriver in the right place where it won't do any damage, and it's allowed me to get the final coil out of position. It's pretty obvious from the damage to the coils that whoever's removed them before hasn't used a VW tool. I don't think that a VW tool would make all that much difference, even holding the coil in this area here. Still very, very difficult to remove them. Now on to what I guess has to be the easy bit at this point. So we've got a 10mm spark plug socket. Well, thankfully, it doesn't look like the spark plugs are being over tightened. The new spark plugs we've got are NGK laser platinums. Careful when you're opening the spark plug not to drop it on the floor. They do have this cardboard protector on, but you won't want to damage the spark plug gap. Place the new spark plug in the spark plug socket so it's securely held, and gently insert the new spark plug until it's finger tight. So that's at the bottom of its travel now. Got two types of spark plug. Got one that doesn't have a washer, and we've got the type with a washer separate. So for this one, At this point there isn't a torque rating, we just need to tighten the spark plug by 1/2 to 2/3 of a turn from where it is when it's hand tight. So a 1/4 of a turn, 1/2 a turn, and as much as 3/4, but between 1/2 and 3/4 of a turn. That's pretty tight now, so we'll leave it at that. And now repeat the same for the other 3 cylinders, spark plugs. I'll just quickly, this is the separate washer type of spark plug that we've got on here. Place the coils from the positions they were removed from, so we've got 4, 3, 2, 1. Applying some WD to the rubbers where it joins to the spark plug and where it sits in the top of the rocker cover. We need to reattach the connector before pushing the coil back fully down onto the new spark plug. Refit the charge pipe, taking care to refit the breathers. Got this cable clip here for the harness. Make sure that the coil wiring's tucked back in properly. Breather reconnected. Rubber pipe back where it was. Attach the front side first. and then push the back down until both clips are holding it back in position. Attach the connector for the pressure sensor and refit the plastic bracket on the front. Just make sure that any pipes that were held on to the charge pipe are pushed back into position. Finally, we can start the car. Happy that it's running well. There's the engine cover, and that'll be job done. Final service item we've got is the cabin filter. It's located in the passenger footwell. Probably see the direction of airflow is that way, based on the leaves coming out of it. So now all that's left that we can do is reset the service light. So if you haven't got the multimedia system, you can't reset the service light this way. If you have, then you can click on car, go into servicing and checks, service intervals. You'll see the oil change due, service due, well overdue on this car, and you can reset the oil change interval using the multimedia system. So now the oil change isn't due. For the service light, which is an inspection light on these, or known as the inspection due, you do need diagnostic equipment. On the models without the multimedia system, you may be able to reset the oil change like the typical VW way, which is holding the trip reset button with the ignition off. While holding it, turn the ignition on and keep hold of it until the spanner light flashes or something, and that usually resets it, but it's not working on this car. But I think that the service due is basically the inspection light which you would normally get on VWs. So we're having to use a diagnostic tool to reset the inspection service interval. So as you can see, next service 2 years or 19,000 miles. So unfortunate that you need a machine to reset the service light completely, but that's how it is. So hopefully you've got access to a machine. Otherwise, thank you very much for watching. I hope that this video has helped. I'm sorry it's probably dragged out a little bit because of the coil packs, but this is the job done for real.